He enters the courtroom smiling, confident he was going to be out soon, he thought. 17-year-old Kendrick Morris laugh at the very people whose lives he shattered. But it doesn't last. Because when the judge begins to speak, the entire courtroom goes silent.
Case that cried out for a life sentence, this is the case.
From that moment, everything changes. You can see it on his face. He finally understands. He is not going home anytime soon. This is the story of a teenage predator who didn't just unleash a girl's worst nightmare. He left his victim, Queena Vuong, permanently disabled. But how did it come to this? To understand that, we have to go back to one ordinary night that turned into a nightmare. On the evening of April 24, 2008, 18-year-old Queena drove to the library to return a few borrowed books.
She loved quiet places, libraries, books, moments where the world felt still. Queena was the kind of student teachers never had to worry about. Soft-spoken, focused, always thinking about graduation. That evening felt like any other. Little did she know that ordinary day would take a tragic turn. No urgency, no fear, no reason to rush. Just a simple errand before heading home. Return a few books, walk back to the car, call a friend on the phone. The sun had already dipped low. The parking lot was quiet, almost empty. Peaceful in the way ordinary nights usually are. She stepped outside, still talking on the phone, laughing, chatting, completely unaware that this would be the last normal moment of her life. Nothing about that night felt different. Nothing felt dangerous. And that's what makes what happened next so hard to comprehend. As she walked toward her car, still on the phone, something caught her attention. A man nearby, sitting, watching. She mentioned it casually to her friend, said he looked strange, not threatening, just enough to feel uncomfortable.
She had mentioned on the phone that there was a weird-looking guy sitting on a bed.
She brushed it off, kept talking, kept walking, keys in hand, phone to her ear. But her voice changed, slightly, like her instincts were trying to warn her before her mind could. Her friend would later say she could hear it, that shift in tone. Then, at exactly 10:39 p.m., a scream. Loud, sudden, terrified. And then, silence. The line went dead. Her friend knew something was terribly wrong. She didn't wait. She called for help. She called the family. Within minutes, people were racing toward the library parking lot, praying they were overreacting. They weren't. Police lights, night footage. Queena was found on the ground in a dark, isolated area near the building, bruised, unconscious, lying in a pool of her own blood. Her car door was open, her phone broken in pieces underneath the vehicle. There was blood on the pavement, blood on the door, blood where she had tried to fight. Family members arrived to a scene no parent is ever prepared to see. Panic, screaming, confusion. Then the sirens grew louder. Police, paramedics, flashing lights cutting through the night. They worked fast, because one look at her condition told them the truth. This wasn't an accident. This was violence.
At the hospital, the full horror started to become clear. This wasn't just an assault. This was an attempt to destroy her. Doctors worked through the night, stabilizing her, stopping the bleeding, trying to save her life. The medical reports told a story no one wanted to hear. She had been sexually assaulted, beaten with such force that her skull suffered catastrophic damage. Her brain had been severely injured. The bright, intelligent girl who loved books could no longer walk, could no longer speak, could no longer swallow on her own. Her life didn't end that night, but the life she knew did.
Now she communicates through small sounds, facial expressions, yelling when she's uncomfortable, dependent on others for the most basic things most people never think twice about: eating, moving, existing. And her family had to watch all of it happen in real time. While doctors fought to keep her alive, investigators were already at work. This kind of violence doesn't go unanswered, not when there's a living victim, not when there's evidence everywhere. They combed the parking lot, the car, her clothing, the ground where she was found. And very quickly, one detail stood out. A teenage boy who was often seen around that library after school, waiting for his mother to pick him up. A student from a nearby high school. 16-year-old Kendrick Morris. He had been there before. He knew the area. He knew how quiet it became at night. And now detectives wanted to know if he had been there that evening too. So they ran the tests that never lie. DNA taken from the scene, DNA taken from the victim, and DNA taken from Morris. The results came back. It was a match. Just when investigators thought the case couldn't get any worse, it did. Because when they ran his DNA through the state database, another match appeared. A case from the year before. A 62-year-old woman attacked at a daycare center less than a mile from his home.
Back to close the door. I saw this person came up. He had a ski mask on and some gloves. His left hand caught the door and his right hand had a knife.
For Queena's family, the pain never paused. Every hospital visit was a reminder. Every small sound she made, a reminder of the life she had before and the life she would never get back. They spoke softly, not with rage, but with a kind of heartbreak that doesn't fade. They said they forgave him, but forgiveness did not mean freedom. It did not mean he should ever walk the streets again. They didn't want revenge, they wanted justice. Because the girl they once knew was gone, and no sentence in the world could bring her back. When the trial began, the courtroom felt heavy. Not loud, not chaotic, just tense. Everyone in that room already knew how bad this was. The defense came prepared with a story. They said Kendrick Morris was a victim too, a troubled childhood, abuse at home, beatings that left scars. Psychologists took the stand, spoke about trauma, spoke about emotional damage, spoke about how a boy like this could be shaped by pain. But across the room, the prosecution focused on something else: the brutality, the evidence, the damage done to an innocent girl who would never live normally again. And as the days passed, something became impossible to ignore. He never apologized, never showed remorse, just sat there, cold, still, watching it all unfold. While lawyers argued about his past, the courtroom kept returning to what he had done. After days of testimony, the courtroom grew very quiet. No more arguments, no more experts, just waiting. The courtroom grid was slowly delivered. Sexual battery, kidnapping, attempted murder, aggravated battery. Each word hanging in the air.
The defendant is guilty of sexual battery, force causing injury as charged.
Then the verdict. Guilty. On every single count. No gasps, no celebration. Just a heavy silence that told everyone the same thing. This part was over. Sentencing day felt different. He was no longer a suspect, no longer just a defendant. Now, he was a convicted predator, waiting to hear how the law would respond. The judge spoke carefully, deliberately, calling the crimes especially heinous, atrocious, brutal, and cruel. Then came the number. 65 years in prison. A number that sounded large, but in that room, it didn't feel large enough, because no number could measure what had been taken from Queena. No number could return her voice, her movement, her independence, and everyone sitting there knew it.
But for Queena's family, the story didn't end with the sentence, because they believed this didn't start that night at the library. It started much earlier.
She said to me, "Why can't I see? I'm so itchy everywhere. Can you scratch me? I can't move."
They learned that Morris had already been on the radar of juvenile authorities. There had been warning signs, incidents, aggression, troubling behavior that people had seen before, and yet he was still free to roam. So the family took an unexpected step. They filed a civil lawsuit, not just against him, but against the adults responsible for watching him. They argued that proper supervision could have stopped this, that someone should have seen where this was heading, that the system and the people closest to him had failed long before Queena ever walked into that parking lot. Years passed, and just when the family thought the court chapter was over, it reopened. Morris appealed, arguing that the sentence was too harsh for someone his age, asking the court for mercy. Mercy he had never shown. Because of changes in juvenile sentencing laws, the court was forced to revisit the case, forced to hear it again, forced to make Queena's family sit through the memories one more time. The details, the evidence, the damage, all of it brought back into the room. Then the judge spoke again. This time, the decision was final: life in prison.
Today, Queena is still fighting. Not for justice, but for the smallest pieces of independence most people never think about. She cannot walk on her own, cannot speak the way she once did, cannot live the life she had planned as a young girl who loved books and quiet places. The attack didn't just take a night from her, it took a future. The college years she dreamed about, the freedom of adulthood, the simple joy of living without help, all of it stolen in a matter of minutes. And the question that lingers is hard to ignore. How do you measure a sentence against a life permanently changed? If stories like Queena's matter to you, don't let them fade into silence, because remembering is sometimes the only voice victims are left with. So please take a moment to like this video, subscribe, and share with your loved ones.